Item number 3 is 2019-R-006. Project applicant is Bell Lane Limited Partnership. This is rezoning to go from ag to highway commercial development. This is off of Bell Lane, Mulat Road area. Is there, in my district, is there anyone here in opposition to this tonight? Again, this is Sterling Way, Mulat Road. I apologize, I said Bell Lane. That was the applicant. Rezoning request. Is there anyone here in opposition to this tonight? All right, hearing none. This is in my district. This was approved by a vote of 10-0 by the zoning board. It meets all the criteria. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or concerns on this one? Hearing none, I would make a motion to approve without objection. Hearing none, that item is approved. Item number 4, 2019-R-007. Project applicant Scott and Denise McMurray. This location is 3661 Border Avenue in Pace. Zoning request, again, to go from agriculture to highway commercial development. Is there anyone here in opposition to this tonight? Anyone in opposition to the application for 3661 Border Avenue in Pace? All right, hearing none, this is in my district. I would ask if any of my fellow commissioners have any objections to this project. Hearing none, I would make a motion to approve without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is approved. Item number 5, 2019-R-009, project applicant Ramsey and Walker, LLC. Location is Ridge Drive in Navarre, Florida. This is a rezoning request to go from R1M to R2. Is there anyone here in opposition to this tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll come back to that. And actually that wraps us up except for the large scale amendment. So we're going to go back now to item number 1. This is 2018-SX-001. This is in District 5, so I will yield the floor to Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an appeal of a denial on a vote of 5-2 from the zoning board. The project applicant has appealed, so I will ask Mr. Medvey, is he here tonight? If you would, come on up and let us know what's going on. Thank you. Let me get your name and address for the record, and if you haven't already filled out a speaker's form, please do so before you leave.
Is it working? There you go. Yeah, my apologies. Last meeting I was indisposed. I had to meet another application, so I wasn't able to be here. And without further ado, this is a 20-acre parcel. It has an access road off of Soundside Drive, and it's unobstructed. The road, I have a permit for the road. I have basically 10 acres. And what I'd like to do is to split the 10 acres into, on the north access, to 2 parcels, one on the North Lake and one on the South Lake. There's another area south of that that will not have an access at current. We're not addressing that at all. But, you know, it's my understanding that the way you break up properties is you either do a subdivision or you come before the board and you say, I'd like to put 2 homes here. So as opposed to 20 homes or 30 homes or 50 homes, I'm asking for 1 home in 1 parcel and 1 home on the southern parcel. I can meet the roadway requirements if I, you know, put in a road. That's not a problem. The special exception is only to waive that requirement, not to limit me from doing anything with that property. I brought the other owner across the lake from me. It's just J.D. Smith. And again, my intention is to put in 1 home on the north parcel on 10 acres. When I first proposed this, the commission at the developmental office, everybody was excited because they found someone that would come in and buy 20 acres and build 1 home on 10 acres. So, and I'll be honest with you, after listening to the last meeting, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll make some money and subdivide it and not go this route and go ahead and just do a subdivision. And JD and I are pretty good friends, and I'd really like to build 1 house on the north portion, and I can do that 1 of 2 ways. I can go and I can do a subdivision with 2 homes, or I can do a subdivision with 20 homes. This exception is simply to allow me not to have to go through subdivision planning. There are no wetlands impacted by this property. The road's approved. I have a deeded access, I have a permit for the road, and it's all high and dry, and it's not in a flood zone. So, you know, again, the opportunity here is to limit development. I was here at last month's meeting, and I was happy to see you vote on something that was, a guy wanted to put in a condo, and instead you said no. Well, this is what you want. You want someone who's going to put in one home or two homes on 10 acres, as opposed to a subdivision with 10 or 20 or however many. And again, that road access to Soundside Drive is deeded access. There's nothing that prevents me from doing a subdivision. There's no permitting, there's no special exception required for that. So it's kind of been a frustrating process because you're not asking for going from 10 homes to 20 or 40. I have an R1, you know, I have a approved R1 zoning, and if I wanted to, I just would simply plan it and put in 20 homes. If I don't want to do that. I'm wanting to get an exception for that one roadway, and it may be a 20-foot road or a 20-foot road, doesn't matter. The road's going to meet county approval, whether it's a private road or it's a county road. And I would like to, you know, and again, I've looked at breaking it off into zoning it for 2 homes and doing a subdivision that way and just avoiding this process entirely. It was brought to my attention by the you know, some of the people at the planning department. Well, that's no problem. If you only want to do 1 house or 2 houses, we'll give you an special exception. And then I don't know how it's gotten so convoluted, but it's an absolute tremendous benefit to Soundside Drive to have someone walk in there that's not trying to make $1 on every single, you know, 5 homes per acre. And there's 5 acres of high and dry land that's accessible off that road. So I'm not, I'm a little bit frustrated in that this is an absolute benefit, you know, in every way when someone's coming in not doing a development. And so that's my message. So I had the owner across the lake from me is J.D. Smith. If, you know, I'd like him to speak to some of the opposition. It was last meeting, I did watch it, and there was a mention that someone said there's a room full of people that didn't approve it. That was incorrect. There were 2 people that didn't approve it. One was Leon Wynn, and he disapproves everything. And another was a doctor who apologized to me, and I forwarded the letter to Danny, and he actually said, no, I actually do support you. And Cass, the other homeowner, as long as it was just 1 house in the southern lake and 1 house in the northern lake, then he was happy with that. So I did correct the survey to include the road in the northern portion, and the easement stays the same. But by doing this, you're basically meeting, if everybody realizes what's going on, you don't have somebody coming here saying, well, I have 5 acres and I want to put in a subdivision. I don't need to come to the zoning board to do that. I have an R1 zoning. I have a roadway. I have a permit for the road. I have no wetlands impacting that. I'm simply wanting to say, hey, we've got a road, and let's break it off into a northern section and a southern section. It's surrounded by wetlands, and so I can only put 1 house on that southern lake. And the reason for that is I don't have to do a subdivision plot and plan if I do that. If I'm denied, I'll do a subdivision plot, and I may not just do 2 homes, because now I have some expense. So it's almost forcing me to put more homes there if I'm not approved. So I hope you guys see the light in that. It's you know, to me, when I first approached the county with this and people found out that I bought it, they were ecstatic. And JD's here to tell you, the guy that lives across the lake that has sole view of the home, that you have, you know, an opportunity to basically say, okay, you know, money-wise, if I wanted to make more money, I wouldn't do this. I would plan a subdivision, I'd sell those lots for $100,000 a lot, and there's about 20 of them. That's not what I want here. I want to put 1 house in the northern lake and 1 house in the southern lake, and I think that message has been missed. And by approving this, that roadway, without doing a subdivision, that alone limits any future development, because you can't put more homes through that one entrance. You'd have to come back and you'd have to do subdivision planning, and you don't have the facilities to do that. So I hope I made myself clear. I do appreciate the comments from one person last week that this is done on occasion when somebody's actually reducing the number of allowable properties, and that's what it can be used for. So any questions to that?
Any questions from other members of the board at this time? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. So something in our backup, it says 3 lots.
You have a northern lot.
Okay. So
You have a roadway that includes that northern lot, Then you have a southern middle portion, which is accessible, that's the only access to those two properties off Soundside Drive, which is deeded access.
Yeah, so when you come across the road, you're either going to go right or left.
And then that southern, the southern boundary, that middle property is being parceled out, and the whole southern 10 acres is being split off separate. There is not, that is not being planned, that the access to that crosses wetlands, and at the moment, I don't have, but I don't want to break it into two parcels, a northern parcel and a southern parcel, because that was actually future development, was for a roadway to be put in off of Muir Road and Muir Trail, and that's not being addressed here. That's the third parcel that's being separated. And I do have someone that's interested in putting in a home on that one lot on the southern lake. So I would have a home on the northern lake. I have an interested party that wants to build a really nice house on the southern lake, and the southern 10 acres is not part of that. That's why I parceled out. I would do that on a subdivision. If I was going to do a subdivision, I would break it off into probably 10 different parcels.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it in just 3.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anyone else in favor of the application that wants to speak? Please come up now.
Good evening. I'm J.D. Smith, James D. Smith. I'm 4245 Soundside Drive. I don't understand why we're still having this discussion either. He owns the land, and he's building it within the codes of our county and state here for building. He's not violating anything that I can understand. He's come to you for this variance, again, following I don't understand the opposition. I really don't.
We're going to hear that in just a moment.
Excellent. Because, I mean, we've had to drive up here twice, right? So I'm supportive of the position. Okay?
And he's the only, he has basically 90% of my view. He owns the property on Soundside Drive that's on the northern part of the roadway, and so the northern lot is directly across from his property. And there are no other homes that are across, his is the only one. There's a lot that's vacant, and then there's a subdivision with 50 homes on the same acreage, and they haven't been in opposition. I've spoken to them. I've told them I planned one house. The other house, they can't even see because there's wetlands between it. But what you have is you have wetlands north and south of these two properties. So that's what I'm attempting to do, is on the deeded road, put one house in the north lake, one house in the southern lake, and break it apart that way. And then the line that goes between the 20 acres is the old line that was done through the conservation easement. And that's why I'm splitting that off, because that southern 10 acres is being left for down the road. And I've already turned down one developer that wanted to buy it. I'm not interested in having someone develop it. So.
All right. Thank you. Just stand by. Have a seat. Stand by. All right. Anyone in opposition?
No, I wanted to speak in support.
In support. Come on up. Let me get your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Harry Schaefer, 1340 Green Vista Lane, Gulf Breeze, and I'm also the HOA president for Bay Colony, which is directly across the fence from the property that MidV owns. We're very supportive of it because it avoids the high density, which is our major concern. So it's his property, and I think him putting a rather valuable house there only enhances our neighborhood. So we're supportive of it. The only thing we asked is, again, when they start addressing the 10 acres, if that ever comes up, that, again, we get alerted, and we want to be heard on that. And then the only other issue I have is general concern about drainage. We seem to have some projects that have resulted in drainage issues, like the Sacred Heart Medical Facility. When there's heavy rain, we always have water coming onto Tiger Point Boulevard, and sometimes it's so heavy it restricts it down to one-lane traffic. So we just want everybody to be mindful of drainage. We don't want drainage coming into Green Vista. But other than that, we're very supportive of the project.
And I was going to get to the drainage. We'll discuss that as well. I'm going to have to push back a little on Sacred Heart, though. I live down there, too, and I drive by that every day. I think that development has actually lessened the amount of water that sheet flows out on the Tiger Point Boulevard when we have some rain. So, but
It's still a problem.
I understand the concern.
It's still a problem.
It still does come
Right.
out, but I think it's improved the situation. Anyone
you.
else in support? Okay. All right, now we'll hear from those in opposition. Please come on up. Get your name and address, please.
Barbara Buss, 2469 West Bay Shore Road. Mr. Blanchard, have you received letters in opposition?
We have a packet of emails and letters in opposition.
Could you summarize the main opposition to this?
Traffic and drainage, I think, are the two
The two main?
that stand out.
Okay, and I too, was it Mr. Cole that asked the question about the 3 parcels? When I read this, it said resulting in 3 parcels, and so I assumed in reading it that we were looking at more density.
No, Ms. Buss, he has, approximately 5 acres of uplands, is that correct, on this northern parcel?
high and dry land off that
Come on over to the mic. If it was a yes or no, I could take it up from across the room. But
So you have to think of it in terms of two, excuse me,
that's
sorry, I'm a little taller there. You have to think of it in terms of 2 separate, a northern section and a southern section. The southern section is accessible through Murr Trail, but it has a wetlands issue. So that's not, right now, you know, that 5 acres that's down there is not touchable because it's wetlands and it has to go through a process. The northern portion that I'm subdividing, or asking to subdivide, is on a deeded road that has 5 unobstructed acres that are surrounded by wetlands and their neighborhood. So what I'm doing with that is on 1 acre, putting on a house on the southern portion of that across the lake, and then the entire 7 or 8 acres, putting 1 house on it. When we looked at doing a subdivision, they had basically had 6 homes or 7 homes. And so then I said, well, maybe I could just do a subdivision with 2 homes, which is pretty matter-of-fact simple. It would require, you know, some setbacks, but that's the only issue that would have. So that, other than that, that's really the only issue. I could do a 2-unit subdivision, or I could do, and so the down the road portion is a whole separate issue. That's 5 acres, and it's R1. My owning it is the same concerns that she has. If I'm going to live there, I don't want 20 homes on that southern 10 acres. I've already turned down a developer once. If I were to develop it, I'd probably put 4 or 5 homes down there. We looked at breaking it up into 4 or 5. The way it's developed on the initial, 7 years ago, it was approved as a conservation, and they planned it for 4 or 5 homes. I would probably plan it for 4 or 5 homes if I were to do it, but it's at least 2 or 3 years down the making because it's DEP, it's, there's a lot more issues with it because it does cross wetlands. This property doesn't. It's high and dry, and it's not obstructed by any wetlands. So, thank you.
So, Ms. Buss, he could go through the subdivision process and put 4 homes per acre. Mr. Ward, is that correct? He could put 4 homes per acre. He's not asking to do that. He's asking to put 2 homes on this northern portion of the property.
And is that by shortening the roadway, or the number of feet on the road to 70 versus
It's a special exception to allow the division of this parent parcel when he doesn't have the required frontage on Soundside Drive.
Why was this voted down or opposed 5-2?
Mr. Ward, can you address that? I think Mr. Medvey was not here at that meeting, so he didn't have an opportunity to present the information that he presented tonight. Sean, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
I agreed with the gentleman that spoke before that that 10 acres down the road is a little worrisome if he were to subdivide that. I have no problem at all with 2 homes being on the property. However, if down the road we're looking at a subdivision, that would be concerning. And how would we handle that?
It's zoned R1.
So you would stick to that?
It would remain R1. I mean, there's no change there. Is this, Mr. Medvey?
And please forgive any, I don't want to appear to be, but I don't need to come to this meeting to get 4 homes per acre. There's become some confusion that people think that when you buy 20 acres, if it was all high and dry, you could put up 80 homes. You don't have to come before a special exception hearing to do that. You have someone that can put up 20 homes now without coming before this board.
But you need 70 feet.
I don't need that. No, I don't.
If you could,
No,
one at a time and address the board, please.
And this is where the confusion lies. I think that unfairly.
Let me try to jump in here. If he were to go through the subdivision process, okay, prepare an engineered plat, go through that process, he could put up however many homes are allowable under the R1 district. Rather than going through that process, the cumbersome subdivision process, he wants to put up 2 homes so that we have a provision in our code that allows a special exception to provide for this situation. When we have a large parcel that someone wants to divide, but they don't have quite enough road frontage, or they don't have enough road frontage, but they have access, they can get a special exception to divide that into a number of lots. And Sean, what's the maximum number on the special exception?
3.
So they can divide it up to 3 lots without going through the formal subdivision process. And that's what he's doing. If we say no, he can do the subdivision process without asking for our approval because it's R1. So he can put up 4 homes per high and dry acre. He could do the subdivision process, would not come back to this board, and could put up a multiple of homes. So this is kind of what we want to see happen down there, I think. That's everything I'm hearing, is that we have, people are going in there and developing vacant parcels in the Soundside area and in the south end of the county in general. People are pushing back against development, against increasing density,
Yes.
but we're not increasing density. He's already R1. He could go in there and put 4 homes per acre. This takes that off the table. He's no longer going to be able to put up 4 homes per acre. He's going to be able to put up 2 homes on those 2 lots that we're subdividing out, and that's it.
On the northern portion, and that's a deeded road. And I apologize for the misunderstanding, because I think that everyone thought that they could oppose me doing 2 homes or 3 homes or subdividing it. The normal process for that, and I'd hoped somebody would have explained that, but the normal process is not to go through a zoning board, is to go to the subdivision, plan it, and it goes through subdivision planning, and as long as you meet the drainage requirements, the road requirements, and I have a 40-foot road there, I can easily put a 26-foot wide county road. Once I do that, if someone comes in and says, Mr. Medley, we would like to give you $2 million for that property and put 40 homes there, at that point I could say, well, you know what? I've already got a special exception. I'm already building my house, and I don't think anyone could ever have a piece of property like this in Gulf Breeze. Sorry, but no. But that's what's there right now. It's a deeded road with 5 acres. There's 20 homes, 100,000 an acre. There's $2 million. I'm not interested in that. But that's not part of this process. That's what I'm right. Those are my rights. That's what I have R1 access to. Now, if I were coming here saying I want to put in, 42 homes, well, now I have to come back, and they turn that down on high density just north, and I'm against high density. As a matter of fact, I would have thought that everybody would have said, like JD, well, this is a great opportunity to limit development in Gulf Breeze and put 1 home on the north lake, 1 on the south, and yeah, down the road, I'm thinking 4 or 5 homes. But that's my right as an owner when you purchase an R1 property. That doesn't meet, this board has no control over that. I wouldn't, and I really, the last month, I was thinking, you know what, I'll just, heck with it, I'll put a subdivision there and sell it. And then, because I want to live there and because of JD, I've kind of backed off of that and said, well, you know what, let's go ahead and proceed forward. But I apologize for you and everyone else that didn't understand that you can't oppose someone putting in 20 homes on that 5 acres. You can approve an exception. And if the exception's a variance to put in more, like you did with the condo down on the ball, I've gone to that ballpark. You guys make great decisions. I can tell you that. I've actually learned a lot in this process. The only thing I wish that had been explained was that we're not approving whether or not I can subdivide it. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. The main concerns are increasing density in that area because we're already, or in the peninsula area, because it's already saturated. So if the variance does not increase the density, and it doesn't affect the wetlands that are already there, it makes better sense to me.
Okay.
Thank you for explaining it.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
I'll fill out a form. Now, I'm also concerned about density. I'm sorry. Fritz Bus, 2469 West Bayshore Drive. Certainly, with this group, and concerned about the traffic on Soundside Drive, also the development of wetland areas, which this does represent in the southern portion, I think 10 acres. Now, just to clarify, we're talking about building either 2 or 3 houses on that northern part that has the 5 acres that could be subdivided. Now, does the 3 houses then preclude that there will be no more houses built on that 5 acres?
On the lots where the houses are, yes. I mean, there are 3 single-family lots.
But in that northern 5 acres that are dry, that could be subdivided, correct?
Sean, the northern 5 acres, that's the lots we're talking about, right? The only thing that would be able to be subdivided in the future would be the southern portion of the property.
That's correct, sir. We're showing two single-family residentials on the northern parcels, and then the southern 10 acres, or the southern parcel. I don't think it's 10 acres.
The southern part is wetland. That would have to go through
the subdivision review process, if that's the case, if that's what he wanted to further develop. Yes, sir.
Now, I understood, though, that this could be, the northern, the higher property could be subdivided according to R1. Is that correct?
Right now, he could subdivide it according to R1 without coming to us to ask permission.
Okay, but what we're doing now is just putting 2 houses in that area, but that doesn't prevent future subdividing of the rest of that property? Or are these 2 houses or 3 houses and going to really commit this property to no more future development? I guess, Sean?
It's going to be 2 single-family residential lots.
Well, for now. But then, going forward, could that land
He
remain
would have
land?
to go through the subdivision process again.
But that wouldn't preclude him from doing that and adding additional lots on that remaining land.
No. He is not going to build a road to county standards to get to these 2 lots. He's going to build a driveway. So he would not be able to subdivide this in the future.
No,
Mr. Andrews, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well,
He would not meet the requirements of having 70 feet on a county road if he didn't build a road to county standards. So this will be the final subdivision under our regulations for that northern property.
for that the 20 lots that, if you went R1, just went to the, followed the rules of R1, you could build with 5 acres, 20 lots.
If you would, direct your questions to the board,
sorry.
please.
Okay, I'm asking now, if he took that 5 acres, went R1, he could have 20 lots.
Without this?
Yes.
Without this.
Yes.
But what I'm confused about is how does putting up 2 or 3 buildings and their homes on that preclude him going ahead in the future and adding 20 lots or whatever's left of the land, subdividing that. And then,
He's going to put a driveway on that road, or on that property coming from Soundside Drive to access those 2 lots.
Right.
He's not going to put a road that would be built to county standards to access those 2 lots.
Those 2 lots.
If he did, he would probably put more lots in there to recoup those costs.
well, I'm concerned that now we're going to get 42 lots once this whole area is.
Oh, no. It still would be limited. If 20 years from now, somebody comes in, buys the property, grubs up the road and takes it back to vacant property, they could still only get 4 homes per acre.
Right.
They
But that-
couldn't, they couldn't manufacture more density.
Which is in addition then to the
No.
3 that are being built.
No, it's all, that would be a maximum that you could put on there,
I have a really good answer
but it
for that.
doesn't really matter.
I can
the
help
three.
out with that a lot. When you're so the property is surrounded by 2 lakes and wetlands north and south, and those wetlands are low, and, they actually, part of that's fill. So if you don't initially plan this as a subdivision, it's extraordinarily difficult to go back with an engineer and say, we need to take that 20-foot road and make it a 26-foot road, and go to the FDEP and ask them to drain that road. You have to redo the whole thing. You can't just do streets. The setbacks would have to be 20 feet off the wetlands, so now you have to put all the property setbacks on the roads. So if I was going to divide it into 20 homes, I wouldn't be here. I would be with Clint Geesey Engineering to divide it right now. I'd be engineering it, and I'd be putting in swale homes and probably doing 5 or 6 homes. To go back and re-engineer something with wetlands and lakes and roads and drainage is a nightmare. It's almost impossible. And this is what's happening to the neighborhoods next door. They're trying to re-engineer their lakes to drain. And so their only option is to drain on my property. So there's nothing that limits me from doing 20 homes on that 5 acres. It's strictly the variance to say, I don't need to do a subdivision, so let's just do 2 homes and we can avoid all that mess. But to then say to someone, well, if I were to pass away and die tomorrow, if they want to put in a 26-foot road, they could buy it and put in 20 homes. That's what it's zoned for. We're not changing the zoning from R1 to, it's zoned R1, which is the lowest density possible.
So we're adding, right now, we're utilizing, we're utilizing that property right now. The issue is 2 or 3 homes on the northern lake.
Instead of
or whatever.
20.
Well, instead of 20, but I guess I'm still.
And no one has a say-so on that. I have a 20 home right.
Right.
It's just that by doing this, and this is why it was so beneficial.
Mr. Medvey, we need to speak, you to speak.
And this
into the
is why, anyone from your organization, which I will gladly be a part of, would be happy to have someone like me come along and put 1 home on 10 acres or 2 homes on 10 acres. Because you're basically getting the best use of the property, you're limiting development, everything that you want is what I'm doing. Everybody says, well, what if he doesn't, what if he doesn't? Well, I don't have to. What if I just put in 20 homes? But that's not what this meeting's for.
I'm sorry, certainly 3 homes. 2. Or 2, well, are we looking for a variance?
2 homes.
Okay, 2 homes,
3 lots.
3 lots.
It's subdividing into 3 parcels.
Okay,
And 2 homes on the northern parcel.
okay, so we're really talking 2 homes.
And a future 10 acres that's not right now is.
Okay, we need to
Commissioner
wrap it up.
Lencher?
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Commissioner
Right.
Lanford.
Okay, my question is, again, 2 homes now, and then future subdividing of the rest of the property, and what I'm hearing,
With wetlands issues and planning issues and subdivision issues.
so for, say, the next foreseeable future, you're just talking 2 homes on that corner. Okay, well, that's basically my question.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
Commissioner Lencher, I may see where the confusion's coming in if we simply give them one of these. Shows the 2 homes. I think calling it North Lake, South Lake is confusing it. If this is right, this is the simplest thing to show them.
Anyone else in opposition to this request? I think this is the best possible outcome for this property. This is, the property down there is extremely valuable. As soon as lots are divided, they are sold. We have someone who's purchased a large tract and wants to minimize the impact. He wants to put 2 homes on here instead of 20 or 10 or however many he could fit on these 2 lots if he were to go through the subdivision process. So if the residents down there object to this, I don't know where we go from here. This is what you want, I think.
I'm not concerned about
Okay.
2 homes, I'm concerned about 22 homes. If subsequent to this, there'd be...
Any other comments from the board? Commissioner Parker?
I'm just ready to move forward with it so we can get to these other folks.
Okay. Unless there are any other comments, I would move approval of the appeal without objection. Approval of Mr. Medvey's appeal.
Okay.
Hearing no objection,
I did
it's
that right.
approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, item number 5 is 2019-R-009. Project applicant is Ramsey and Walker LLC. Location is Ridge Drive, Navarre, Florida. There are 3 parcel identifications noted. This is existing zone of R1M and R2 and proposed zone of R2. This is in District 4, so I will yield the floor to Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the project applicant is here, if he'd like to address first. And just state your name and address, and make sure you fill out a card for us, Mr. Ramsey.
Brett Ramsey, 9503 Acorn Lane, Navarre, Florida. Gentlemen, I'm here today because there's an affordable housing crisis, as we all know, in Navarre. Yesterday, I looked at the MLS. There was not a single home, new home for sale under $220,000. Anything over $220,000, you have to be E6 to qualify for financing. So there's a lot of young airmen out there, young families that don't have, aren't going to be able to recognize the dream of home ownership. I'm just going to read, this is going to sound familiar to all of you because you're very familiar with the Master 4 Plan, the District Master 4 Plan. Housing affordability is an important factor in creating an inclusive, equitable community, as well as an important determinant of the future viability of a community and the economic well-being of its residents. One of the greatest limiting factors for District 4 is the lack of large tract developable land, with most of the development consisting of single-family detached housing. As the district continues to grow and housing prices continue to rise, it will be more difficult for individuals and families with moderate incomes to purchase property in the immediate area, making it even more important to provide affordable housing options. Providing affordable housing options will help ensure working individuals and families remain in the community. In order to support the estimated population growth, the region must increase its housing and commercial density. It is unlikely that single-family detached housing alone will support the projected growth. I'm going to read that again. It's unlikely that single-family detached housing alone will support the projected population growth, thus driving the demand for single-family attached housing units. You know, right now, the current future land use, less than 1% in District 4 is medium density. So we have a real problem there that needs to be addressed, and the only way to do that is through zoning changes. And of course, we all would prefer that to be broad strokes over, part of a master plan. I also see, several conservatives up here that recognize that, sometimes that private industry has to push that because they can do it a little bit more efficiently than government can. We're here today to ask for your help in providing an affordable housing option for our enlisted service members, teachers, and first responders. Our proposal consists of 11 buildings with 2 attached single-family homes in each building. While it would be more profitable to build more units in fewer buildings, our goal is to have the look and feel of a detached single-family home neighborhood, and the exterior designs will reflect this. These 11 buildings would sit on a privately maintained road with engineered on-site drainage retention, meaning the county's fiscal commitment is little to none. The site sits between Ridge Drive and Quail Roost Drive, offering ingress and egress from 2 streets, neither of which are on an access management road. Both of these roads feed to Panhandle Trail, which offers access to 98 with a traffic light, which if you're in Navarre, you know that's very important in the mornings and especially in the afternoons as well. Traffic impacts from this build would be nominal. This is not an environmentally sensitive area either. The surrounding area takes mixed residential to a whole nother level. The properties immediately to the east are dilapidated apartments currently zoned R2. 2 parcels to the west is a non-conforming auto repair and salvage yard. To the north on Eagle Nest is a trailer park with 18 rentals sitting on the same 2.25 acres I have. There's another trailer park with 11 rentals on Sunset. There's 34 medium density parcels in this area, 21 of which are on this very block, with 9 more that are less than 900 feet away. Many of these are already interior lots. A project of this quality construction will be a step up for the area as consistent with surrounding density. I'm sure there are neighbors here to speak tonight who aren't in favor of building because everybody wants a home, but nobody wants one built next to them. That's just human nature. I think most of us enjoy the scenery and quietness that a vacant lot next door offers. But a not in my backyard response is not a good enough argument. They're going to raise the concern that rental apartments are going to take over their single-family neighborhood. This just isn't the case. Our plan is to sell these attached single-family homes to those who have been priced out of the dream of homeownership. The pride of homeownership will be seen in the curb appeal, and the HOA is going to see that the property values and aesthetic is preserved for years to come. Any future zoning changes would be up to you and is not a foregone conclusion based on your vote tonight. Also, from a developer standpoint, the economic viability of future projects such as this just isn't there. What makes this unique and makes it feasible is because we have two roads that we can connect right there. Now, this isn't all about maximizing profit for me. If it were, I'd definitely be presenting a completely different and cheaper design, fewer buildings. I'm a neighbor too. I grew up in Navarre. I live about a mile from this property, and I drive by it every day. I want to provide affordable housing on a street that I can be proud of. What we are proposing does that. We're offering an increase of taxable value of over $4 million. We're taking a property that's currently taxed at $115, I believe, and we should be well over $4.5, without placing a strain on county infrastructure. And we're doing that by having a privately maintained road and then having on-site retention. I'm excited for the opportunity to bring in an additional $50,000 to the county budget, and I think it's a responsible thing to do. It's responsible growth, which is what we're all here for. At this point, I'd like to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions for Mr. Ramsey?
I've got one. I may have one later, but is there any objection or I guess reason for the R2 rezoning in lieu of, say, a PUD? It really, I mean, obviously, it locks you in, it ties your hands, but
Right.
but that I think gives some comfort with. The only thing is definitely not saying you would, but unfortunately, we've had people stand at that podium that said they would do one thing with the property, and we rezoned it, and they didn't. And so obviously a PUD gives me comfort when you say, we're going to do this, then I know, and if I am in support of it, I can tell folks this is what he's going to do because it's the only thing allowable. But if we go with R2, based on the calculation that staff did, it would be a possible unit of 22. And so I'm just wondering, would you have an objection or a reason why not doing a PUD?
Well, the reason that, we went with R2, that was the first thing that came to my head. And then originally, I was going to go to R2M. But to give that comfort level to the neighbors and the board here who want to go to R2, because we have no desire to put mobile homes there, okay? As far as, going with a PUD, it's not something that I'd consider. It wasn't brought up to me by staff. It's not something I'd be opposed to necessarily. What I'm proposing is the highest density possible as it is. So, even if I didn't follow this plan, like you said, is, my right going forward if it's approved tonight, well, there's nobody that can come in behind me that's going to have higher density than, what I have in mind here anyways.
Why is it that you feel that way? And I apologize if I don't know. Maybe staff didn't brief me. John, why is it that no one else could put more than 11 units on there, but staff analysis said maximum of 22 units?
That's the acreage, the 2.25 acres times
Right.
10 to 1 units.
So would it be possible to do more than 11 or not?
Yeah, Mr. Barker, it's 22 units. It's
Right.
11 buildings, though, is
Okay.
what it is. So that's the maximum allowable density for R2 is 10 units per acre.
Apologize, I was looking
Yeah,
at it wrong.
no problem.
I'm with you there. Okay.
But yeah, that's the reason that we're doing 11 buildings is to try to create the feel of single detached family homes. That's kind of what I was touching on earlier. It would be a whole lot more affordable for me. I could make a whole lot more money if I jam-packed all of them in 1, 2, 3 buildings, something like that. That's not my main objective here. I want to have something that's going to be aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood and, provide that feel of a detached single-family home.
Commissioner Peach? Go ahead. So maybe calling it, you're going to build 11 duplexes.
There'll be 2 units.
Condos to me, have the connotation of maybe,
Right.
2 to 4 to 6 units per building. So So you're going to build 11 duplexes.
As far as the structure goes, I would call it a duplex, yes, sir, because there's 2 units right there. The common grounds there, the road, the retention, the yards for these people, it should all be common area, and it's going to be governed by an HOA. We do not plan on, making it a condo.
Okay. These units that are to your east,
Yes, sir.
I see 4 on one property, 2 on another. From the aerial, and I apologize, I haven't been down there, they look like possibly duplexes. Can you identify that?
Yes, sir. Those are duplexes. They've been there for years and years and years. They are in need of repair, to say the least. I think the concerns of some of the neighbors here tonight is those are duplexes that are an eyesore for the community. I'm saying that I'm going to put in duplexes as well. It's totally different. The ones to the east of us are very low-income housing. I'm not even sure if they have central AC in them. I see a lot of window units there, and they're just in complete disrepair.
Well, I'm not looking to knock that. I'm just looking for a visual for myself.
Yes, sir.
To say, okay, if you're doing 11, I'm looking at 6. Gives me something to work with.
Right, and there's no infrastructure there either.
Thank you.
None whatsoever, because it was done, in the 80s or early 90s. I'm not exactly sure.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Ramsey? Okay. Is there anyone else here in support of this? Okay, if you just stand by, Mr. Ramsey. Is there anyone here in opposition to this? Okay, come on up. And I would ask you, if one person says what you were going to say, we can hit it. We can move along. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
I didn't fill out a paper, but I can.
Please
My name
do.
is Joan Alderman, and I actually live on the east side of Quail Roost, which is dead end. I'm not opposed to the houses that have been built around us. I've lived there for a long time. My husband's property has been there for 30 years. They've built new houses behind us. The problem I have is the traffic. I have a real problem with the traffic. There's no sidewalks. My daughter has been crossing Panhandle Trail for a long time to catch a bus. If you haven't driven into our neighborhood and checked it out, you really should. 22 units, that's an awful lot for 2.5 acres. I mean, it's seriously, for Quail Roost that is barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to drive down. When it rains, it floods at that corner. My property that I live on is actually probably one of the highest properties on the end of my property, and when it rains, everything goes down to the end of my driveway. I walk down there to make sure my driveway is not washed out so I can get out. I understand he wants to build some affordable housing, but 22 units on 2.5 acres on Quail Roost and Panhandle, it's a thoroughfare. People drive 50 and 60 miles an hour down that road, and I'm not exaggerating. We have to call the cops all the time so they can slow people down. I wasn't going to talk, but it really hurts my feelings to think that he thinks that putting 22 units in there with, what is that, 60 people plus to a dead-end street, which is Ridge Drive, and Quail Roost, which is a thoroughfare. Seriously, I really need you guys to come drive in our neighborhood and look at our neighborhood. Single dwelling homes, that's perfect. Multi-dwelling, I don't think so.
Thank you, ma'am. If you just state your name and address for the record, sir, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is T.J. Doherty. I live at 9139 Ridge Drive in Navarre. I'm up here representing some 45 petitioners in the surrounding area of where this project is supposed to be going in, and I request a little bit of liberty with regard to the 3-minute rule. I don't even think we're enforcing the 3-minute rule this evening, so. In your packets, you will find two petitions in opposition to R009. One petition is supported by 15 of the 16 other property owners on Ridge Drive on the west side of Panhandle Trail. The only non-support property, other than the property in question at this hearing, is owned by another developer, Whitworth Builders of Fort Walton Beach. The other petition that's in there is signed by 30 property owners on Quail Roost, the other residential street impacted by this rezoning request, who live in the 9100 and 9200 areas of Quail Roost bordering both sides of Panhandle Trail. We're opposed to the rezoning action for the following reasons. First, lost expectations. Some of us have been property or homeowners since the 70s, up through as recently as late last year. In each case, we did our due diligence and purposely purchased in an area defined in the future land use code as R1M, single-family residential. Rezoning an interior neighborhood R1 lot to R2 places our homes and our investments into economic jeopardy and uncertainty. Secondly, precedence. In 2014, the property immediately adjacent to the west of the Ridge Drive property was denied an R2 rezoning request 9-0 by the zoning board, denied on appeal, and denied by the Board of Commissioners 5-0. That's case 2014 R005. Third reason, increased density and lack of adequate infrastructure. As the properties in question currently sit, they can accommodate 4 single-family residences without variance and/or some other zoning action. At an estimated 2 to 2.5 cars per residence, this is an increase of 8 to 10 vehicles and 4 families in this neighborhood. Under the developer's proposal, 11 duplexes with 22 residences, the vehicular density increases to somewhere in the neighborhood of 44 to 55 vehicles, all parked along a 600-foot-long road that he's going to put in, and the accompanying driveway. In addition, it almost doubles the existing number of families in the immediate vicinity, as the lady preceding me mentioned. The east ends of both Ridge and Quail Roost cannot handle this increased vehicular traffic. As it is now, traffic on Quail Roost is severely backed up during the morning and evening rush hours and will completely block any exit to the south onto Quail Roost out of this proposed road. I also like to mention Quail Roost is a major cut-through in Navarre, going from East Navarre across 87, not as Quail Roost, but you can continue with a little jog in the road, and then you can get all the way over to where the intermediate school and the middle school are, over by the post office in Navarre. It's one of the roads that I believe is being considered for the alternate 98, the other one being Sunset, which is 1 block north of Ridge. Furthermore, both Ridge and Quail Roost, as was mentioned, have deep drain ditches, no sidewalks with very limited on-street parking available, and forcing walkers and joggers to use the street. Fourth reason is no development guarantees. The zoning board's R2 approval was not contingent upon the developer's stated plans. He could turn right around, he could turn right around and resell any of these 3 properties as R2 to the highest bidder. Finally, future development. Opening the interior of this neighborhood to R2 development will quickly bring additional R2 rezoning requests. This is the second in the last 5 years, just on Ridge alone. What will then be the justification for denying any future R2 requests once the first one is granted in the interior of the neighborhood? The developer-owned property I mentioned on Ridge has been vacant for over a year. I'm sure Mr. Whitworth and his company are just waiting to see what the outcome of this particular hearing is on this rezoning action. In your packets, you have one email that is supportive of this rezoning request from Lois and Jack Wibble. The Wibbles own a 1.1 acre parcel that is an interior lot accessible only through a 70-foot frontage on the east side of Panhandle Trail. This is not the residence. They live over on Highway 87 on the other side of Navarre. Additionally, they own 7 other properties for a total of about 7.5 acres all around Navarre. If you look at their parcel layout on Panhandle, it's quite easy to understand their reasoning for the support of this rezoning request. I have some handouts here that I'd like to give you and step you through very quickly what's going on in this neighborhood. Can I approach? The first page of your handout shows the larger area within this rezoning action, where the rezoning action is being requested. It is a 3-block east to west by 7-block north to south, bordered by Timber Lane, which is 1 block north of Highway 98 on the south end, Panhandle Trail on the east, East River on the north, Pawnee on the west. Just for orientation, over here on the far right-hand side in this pink area, that's the Navarre soccer fields. Over here on the west side, the pink area is the Holly Navarre Youth Area, and the blue area is the YMCA, and of course a little further to the west is the high school. There are over 400 land parcels currently contained within this area that's shown in red, and more is springing up each day as the parcels are being subdivided by developers. The green buildings are mobile homes, the red ones are single-family residences. Over the past 5 years, the neighborhood has been rapidly transitioning from mobile homes on 165-foot frontage to single-family residences with 50 to 60-foot frontages. As of this morning, every street in this neighborhood has some form of home construction going on within it. It won't be long before the housing density of the entire neighborhood doubles while retaining an infrastructure designed 20 to 30 years ago for half that density. There are 4 parcels down here in the southeast corner on Panhandle Trail that were talked about by the developer. Those were mentioned as being R2. I believe almost all of those parcels were existing when the zoning came in. So it was not a rezoning action, it was a grandfathering action. Likewise, on Quail Roost, he mentioned where the dollar bill sign is, that's Bryant's Auto Repair, and that is another grandfathered in installation that was not done through any rezoning action. So the bottom line is, within this 3 by 7 block box that's highlighted in red, there is not a single R2 property on the interior. What R2s exist only on the bottom south end of Panhandle Trail. All of the properties that Mr. Ramsey just mentioned about being down there, additional R2 areas, mobile home parks, things of that nature, they all reside on the east side of Panhandle Trail in this neighborhood. On the next page, you can zoom into the area in question. Yes. And you can see in purple along here is where the existing duplexes are. The lot circled in blue is the lots that are in question here for the rezoning. The lot in maroon up here on Ridge is the one that was denied back in 2014 for an R2. During its deliberation on this rezoning request on February 14th, the zoning board supported Mr. Ramsey's appeal for more affordable housing in Navarre, and he's already made his pitch to you all. I'm not so sure exactly how affordable housing equates to a requirement to have to rezone from R1 to R2. I'm reasonably certain that affordable housing can be provided within an R1 zone parcel. That determination resides in the hands of the developer. In fact, in the past 12 months, Mr. Ramsey, just in the Quail Roost Ridge Drive area, has developed 2¼ acres on Ridge Drive and another acre on the corner of Sunset and Panhandle. He built and sold 7 homes in those 2 areas where he could have built 11 smaller affordable homes. So the developers aren't really thinking about putting in affordable housing. They're trying to capitalize on an opportunity here. If you work through the math that Mr. Ramsey was talking about in terms of $4 to $4.5 million in increased value, divide that by 22 homes, that's $190,000 to $200,000 per duplex unit. I find that hard to be defined as affordable housing, especially for junior enlisted and junior officers. As a retiree with 20 years in the Air Force, I'd like to explain exactly how this transition occurs with these houses. If in fact junior enlisted junior officers can afford these units, in about 2.5 years' time, when it's time for them to PCS, the light bulb is going to come on. They're going to say, you know, this is probably a pretty good investment holding on to this little duplex that we have here. And they're going to PCS out of here, and all those units that we were told are going to be nice, affordable, single family to get people started are going to turn into rental properties. I know general officers that today are retired. 40 years ago, they purchased the same type of units in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Jacksonville, Arkansas, and today as retired 3- and 4-star generals, they still own those properties, and basically they're slumlords. I found it interesting that 2 weeks prior to the zoning board voting on this action, both this body and the zoning board took up discussions of the District 4 draft master plan. When I reviewed the tapes in the past couple of days of both those deliberations, there was little, if any, discussion on the need for affordable housing in Navarre. I should hope that Santa Rosa County has a more rigorous and comprehensive approach to the problem of providing affordable housing than simply through spot rezoning actions. In fact, the District 4 draft master plan that Mr. Ramsey referenced addresses this issue, and I quote, "The medium-density residential district in Navarre East supports residential development ranging from single-family detached units to triplex residences. The district is located south of US 90. This district is located south of US 98. The partials generally extend from US 98 south to the Santa Rosa Sound." End quote. So they're basically talking on the south side of Highway 98, south of this subdivision that we were looking at as the ideal location of where the Navarre East area of medium-density residential should go. So it's already being looked at, and we're already being asking for waivers before we even start looking at the draft plan to change the district. In conclusion, I and the other petitioners request that you adhere to the existing land use code, protect our investments, and overturn the zoning board's decision in this matter by denying 2019 R009. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Doherty? Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
It's going to be hard to follow that up. He covered pretty much everything,
Well,
as you folks know.
You don't have to repeat what he says. We got
It's
it all
going
down.
to be hard
so-
not to, sir.
Okay.
I'm Alex Thompson. I live at 9126 Ridge Drive. I am also a veteran of the United States Air Force, where I served 24 years. Ironically, 5 years ago, I stood up here in front of you folks or your predecessors for the very same reason that Mr. TJ just talked about, in hopes of you folks supporting us with denying the rezoning of our single-family lots out there to the multi-density or multi-family housing out there. So during this time, as Mr. TJ alluded to, you folks and your predecessors stood behind us, the people who you represent, and you heard our voice out there, and you understood what the complications of this could potentially bring to us as homeowners out there. Loss of value to our homes, increased density out there, degrading of our roads. We already see poor infrastructure on our drainage out there right now, and by adding these additional homes, 22 houses out there, you will have less surface area for the rainwater to get to right now when you put asphalt out there. Another thing that I was just sitting back there thinking about, you put this 600-foot road in there with 22, 44 cars, who knows how many. How is emergency services supposed to get back in there? It's already difficult as it is right now on the current roads that we have out there. They are falling apart at an alarming rate, and with the additional vehicles out there, it's only going to degrade that much quicker. So, we the homeowners are not in this for the money. You already know that. Whereas Walker and Ramsey stand to make a pretty nice coin off of this if they get this approved. We stand united in our properties, in our beliefs of trying to raise a family out there in a peaceful and tranquil environment of which we currently had. And by adding these additional families is only going to cause, they could be good and bad. But we're only thinking of the worst case scenarios. It's quiet right now, and that's how we'd like to keep it. We have no problem with single-family houses being built out there, but by adding 22 houses out there, it's going to get chaotic. Our roads are not made for it right now. He had the opportunity to do this on the corner of Panhandle and Sunset, and he chose to build single-family houses for well over $200,000, which I don't believe is considered affordable housing. I have done a number of volunteer opportunities working for Habitat for Humanity. I don't believe I've ever seen him out there or his company representing them, helping try to build these affordable houses for people who don't even have money. I have done it. I don't have the money. So I purchased my lot, like I said, for the peaceful and tranquility that it brings us, in the hopes of bringing up a family out there without the multi-density units that are proposed out here. So I ask you all, as representatives of the people who voted for you to put you in your seats right now, to stand behind us and stand united and deny this right for the rezoning for a multifamily, multi-density type of units. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Okay.
I did want to ask one question to the chairman, and I meant to bring this up before the meeting started. Could we add a public forum to tonight's discussion? Because I'd like to talk about something in this area, but it has nothing to do with this particular action.
If it can be brief, and if I
Yes.
can get a restroom break in between the regular and the public forum, I'm struggling getting through this, but I don't want to walk out on you on the meeting, so.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Like the other, sir, if you just state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Stipek. I'm on 9186 Ridge Drive. I've lived out there since March of 1995. We have multiple acres out there that we own, that we moved out there to maintain for, again, the serenity of our neighborhood. And it's drastically changing. As TJ said about his service to the military, I'm also a 24-year veteran. I am also an emergency responder for Eglin Air Force Base. And with that, I'm an environmental protection specialist for Eglin. My main concern with this is our ground doesn't perk out there. My property of the 2.5 acres that I have for pasture for my wife's horses out there does not percolate. The storm drains and the swells on the side of the road do not percolate. For Mr. Ramsey to come in there and build these 22 units, the size of the storm retention runoff that's going to have to be built for those 22 units and the asphalt road that's going in there is going to hold a large amount of water, which will not percolate. If that happens and that water stays there for a long time, we have a very large amount of insect infestation, to include mosquitoes that carry pathogens that can damage wildlife and stock, and soon to probably start being detrimental to humans as well. So not having the percolation that's in there, I would strongly recommend that you all deny this change of the zoning. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, Mr. Ramsey, do you want to rebut or have anything new to add? Please.
So I was taking notes while everybody was talking. The big concern, and I tried to address that when I spoke originally, was they're worried about rentals. They're worried about the dynamic of the neighborhood changing to a rental neighborhood, that everything's going to be worn down just like the stuff that's adjacent to it. That's one of the reasons I want an HOA there. That should protect that and have a long-lasting, aesthetically pleasing development. They've talked about drainage several times. Drainage is an issue on the corner of Quail Roost and Panhandle. The issue that we have there is, one, county maintenance. Two, you have something that was developed 30 years ago, 30-plus years ago, and the duplexes that we're talking about that didn't have the stringent engineering requirements that we have today. So you couple those two things, and it causes an issue. That's not relevant on our property because of how things have evolved, the strides that the county has made, especially over the last few years, to improve that. But that does need to be addressed, the corner of Panhandle and Quail Roost. I touched on spot rezoning. They talked about spot rezoning. I don't think anybody up here, it's not an ideal situation to have spot rezoning. We all want a well-thought-out master plan that will be long-lasting, long-range plan, 30 years down the road that'll work. Well, we haven't had those updates in a while. I know we're trying to do that, and it's hopefully will happen, this year. But the need for affordable housing is now. The only way to do that is to increase density. They mentioned, I've built more in this area than anyone else has. This little area that TJ gave you a map of. And I touched on it when I was talking earlier. This is a unique property. It's the only one that I've ever asked for a zoning change on. They mentioned one that I had on Panhandle Trail that they think would be a better place for that. It's not viable there. And it's what I was saying earlier. I'm looking at this as a neighbor, but as a developer too. Of course, there's a potential to open the floodgates with a lot of R2 zoning requests. The worst thing that's going to happen if you change any of this area to R2 is builders are going to start putting 3 houses on a 165-foot lot instead of 2. Currently, at the end of Quail Roost, the west end, those are zoned R1A. I guess there was something that happened along the way that increased the density there. So he mentioned that all these 165 lots are turning into 50 to 60-foot frontage, and that's not the case. It's 82.5-foot wide, or the majority of these lots. What happened was early 2010, 13, somewhere in there, Henry came in and they put R1A, which has the same characteristics as R2 that I'm asking for down there. They also said that there's no interior lots that are R2 right now, and that's not true. You look at Timber Lane on the east side of Panhandle, another development that Mr. Henry had rezoned, I believe. It could have been original zoning, I'm not sure, but it's R2. And you go inwards, and there's 2-3 lots off of Panhandle Trail that are R2. The mention of sidewalks and infrastructure, we heard that several times. We need it. We have this in the District 4 master plan, plans for sidewalks. Everybody up here, everyone in the audience, we all agree we need sidewalks. We have plans to do that going forward. We're trying to find a way to pay for this stuff. One way you do that is, increasing your ad valorem taxes. Another way is well, I'm a developer. I'm going to put sidewalks in our development. Of course, I can't go the thousands of feet down Quail Roost where we need it, but hopefully this extra $50,000 a year in tax income that we're having, hopefully that'll go towards that a little bit. And I understand the intricacies that go, with the funding and stuff like that, and you hear the same, argument from every developer that comes up here. They're talking about, they're worried about their home value going down. If you open the floodgates to R2, their home value is going to go up. I mean, a lot of this area is mobile homes. Some of them are ready to go. They've served their useful life, and if you change it to R2, well, the value of those homes are going to go up. Now, a single-family site-built home, R2 change probably, no, it's not going to affect it. It's not going to draw it up. I'm not, blind to say that. I have no interest in reselling this. I put food on my table by building houses and putting people in those houses. Why would I sell this to someone else? It just doesn't make sense. And as I mentioned earlier, if I did do that, well, no one can possibly get more density than what I'm asking for right now. Not necessarily a great argument for me, but it's the truth. I think that's pretty much most of the notes I had. TJ touched on the District 4 master plan again. where we can put medium-density housing. I touched on it as well. They've identified some vacant land south of 98 on the east side. Well, we're talking, according to the master plan, 41 acres, guys. 41 acres in all of Navarre for future land use for medium density. That's less than 1%. If you look on the chart in the district 4 mile, it says 0%. We don't have enough medium density housing to keep up with the demand that's coming in. People are going to continue to move to Santa Rosa County. I mean, we all know how great it is. I don't need to go on about the beaches and schools and all that great stuff. We're not going to stop that, but we have to do something to house them, but we have to do it responsibly. And I think this is an opportunity to do that because we have on-site retention, we have a privately maintained road. So we're doing this at a very, very low cost for Santa Rosa County. So when everyone yells about responsible growth, I like to believe that this is what we're talking about right here. Of course, not everyone's going to agree with me there, but I think it's a great opportunity for the community and for Santa Rosa County to provide affordable housing. You can't do that with R1 because of the lot prices. I had R2 that I was able to sell for $185,000 3 years ago. I told you, there's nothing under 222, guys. I mean, it's gone out of reach for so many families. And the only way that we can get that price down where it's a little bit more affordable is to increase density, because I can't make any money, I can't put any food on my table by putting smaller houses that are more affordable on land that is astronomical. I mean, these lots over here I used to buy for $25,000 each, and now I'm paying $80,000 to $100,000. That's where the affordability is going out the window. And as the land becomes more finite, I don't need to give you an economics lesson. The prices are going to continue to go up unless we increase density. That's all I have. I appreciate your time tonight, guys.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Ramsey? Okay, Mr. Chairman, if not, I think I'll attempt to bring this one in for a landing. I have driven that area. I've actually walked that area from the end of Ridge Road all the way around Quail Roost, and I'm very familiar with this area because I'm one of the ones that cuts through Panhandle when 98's backed up, so guilty. But, and I appreciate the efforts in the talk about making things more affordable for, younger military. But that's what I did for most of my career, and I'm working with the bases now to get their housing market analysis, because we all know the District 4 master plan didn't go deep enough into housing. We heard that from developers themselves when we had that thing. So I don't rely on the District 4 master plan that we accepted as the end-all be-all for the housing issues. I'm working that issue specifically with Eglin and Hurlburt on the official government needs for housing that come through, and I'll be happy to share that with everyone. We can't fix sins of the past. There are R2 there, those houses on the corner. Yeah, it does not look good. But these folks did purchase homes, and this is a single-family resident area that's going through what I would call a remarkable revival. We're getting rid of the mobile homes. There's beautiful single-family homes going up. Mr. Ramsey himself has built very nice-looking quality single-family homes in this area. We've turned down the rezoning just one lot over from this before in an effort to control the density. And if we need more R2, then we need to look at the county as a whole, because I'm not prepared to start creeping in R2 and more density as we go. As we all know, we have the infrastructure issues that are out there. So I appreciate the arguments that go with it. I don't think a HOA is going to be able to control something that small. I'm in a HOA now that's huge, and we can't control things that are in there. So, like I said, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate all the efforts, but after having walked this area numerous times, driven this area, and seeing what's happening in that area in a positive way, I don't think making these lots R2 and increasing the density in that area is where we need to do it, because it does start to put in that spot rezoning when I think we're on a more positive trend in that area. So If there's any questions from my fellow commissioners, I'm prepared to make a motion. Okay.
Seeing none, I would accept your motion. or
Okay. Mr.
advise you to
Chairman?
Go ahead and make it.
I make a motion to deny the request to rezone the area from R1M to R2 without any objection.
Mr. Chairman, conversation just before we close it, real quick.
Commissioner Cole.
Would there be, if Mr. Ramsey came back at a later date with a, as the chairman suggested at first, maybe a lesser plan unit development, would that be something that you would consider?
I'd consider the options, but I can't
it's-
guarantee it.
I understand.
Right.
Okay, I just.
Yep, but
wanted to-
as far as this motion, yeah, I can't recommend passing this motion, so I'll restate my motion to deny the request to rezone without objection.
Hearing no objection is denied. All right. That concludes item number 5. Agenda item number 6 is a 2018 R033 is a large-scale future land use amendment. This is applicant of RP Ventures LLC. The location is 9105 Highway 87 North, Milton, Florida. Following tonight's adoption, the public hearing, the item will be forwarded to the state for final review. Existing zoning is rural residential agriculture. Proposed zoning is highway commercial development. This has come before this board before. Existing future land uses rural residential agriculture. Proposed future land use is commercial. This is area size of 13.69, sorry, plus or minus acres. This is in Commissioner Cole's district, District Number 2. However, as Commissioner Cole publicly stated last time it came before the board, I believe he's recusing himself. Therefore, as chairman, I'll feel comfortable with making the motion. It was a recommendation approved without objection when it went before the zoning board, and the BOCC approved it without objection for transmittal to the state on December the 10th, 2018. At this time, I would make the motion to approve without objection, recognizing Commissioner Cole's abstention. And do we have anybody here to speak on this? Yes, sir.
Against it.
Are you against it, or? All right, do we have anybody here against the project? This is the truck stop on Highway 87. Okay. If not, I think the ball's going in your court. I'll make that motion without objection, and again, notating Commissioner Cole's previously stated abstention. Hearing none, that is approved. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with us. If you will make it quick, we will entertain public forum. I hand it over to these other commissioners, and they throw that 3-minute rule right out the window, so appreciate you sticking. I'm going to hold tight with you, but we're just going to have to make it hurry here.
I'll be quick. Again, it's TJ Doherty, 9139 Ridge Drive, Navarre, Florida. The thing I want to talk about real quick is, I think, with all due respect, we need to get planning and zoning in Santa Rosa County back into the planning business. This area that I talked about earlier, where there's construction on every street, as I mentioned, the developers are coming in and they're picking up a 1.25 acre lot with a mobile home on it, ripping the mobile home out, splitting that lot down the middle, and slapping 2 family homes on it. And this entire neighborhood, the density is just increasing. And my big question is, who is managing this? If a developer were to come in here, he would be hit with having to put in storm sewers, curbs, sidewalks, lighting, change the street, off-street parking, or on-street parking, all types of things, and then on top of that, impact fees. But we've got at least 3 or 4 developers on these streets just going crazy building homes in this entire neighborhood, and there's no one is overseeing this development whatsoever. And I'd really like to see, I'd go back over to Sean's department and you know, how is this being managed, or is it even being managed by the county?
Yeah, I think the best way to address it is probably eloquently put by Commissioner Lynchard and the one you heard in his district. is currently zoned R1 or R1M in most of these areas, at least in the map you showed. And so that is the planning. That is the planning that the board adopted, obviously, long before my time, to say that area conforms to R1. And you have requirements such as 70-foot road frontage, no more than 4 houses per acre. And so that is where the planning stage is coming. I think you're just seeing now, with the economy's good and housing market's up, you're seeing development of those lots that were planned for to be single-family residential. What I would encourage you as well is any citizens that are interested in this is right now we're undergoing a comprehensive review and revision of our land development code, specifically dealing with issues of density matters as well as construction and mitigation things. And I would encourage you to get with Sean Ward. He's right over here. He's our planning and zoning director. And get his information. And if you wanted to sit in on some of those citizen workshops and be able to voice input, I would strongly encourage that. But that is our guiding planning document, is our land development code.
Well, I guess my concern is not about the zoning itself. My concern about is who is managing the growth of this. This infrastructure that's here was designed for rural country living in this part of Navarre.
Right.
And it is exponentially turning into an urban sprawl in here. And the roads can't handle it. The roads weren't designed for this much traffic. The drainage is terrible in this entire district. And those of us that live here, we look at, in your package on the R09 issue, it shows that here is where there's some flood drainage control. I've been complaining for 20 years about the network of drainage ditches that go to the East River to drain this entire area, and the county can't get in here and clean these drainage areas out because they're not on easements. They can't get the heavy equipment in there. I asked for prisoners. They say, no, we're not going to send them to your yard. It's just that, somebody has to manage this, and that's my appeal to you tonight in the public forum.
No, I appreciate your concern. I can speak for every commissioner up here unanimously last week. Recognize the fact that we have capital needs, we have drainage project needs, we have traffic needs. We talked about it at a budget workshop specifically focused for the needs of the county. We recognize that. They far exceed the current revenue, and that is why this board unanimously moved forward with trying to get a 1 cent sales tax instead of a half cent sales tax so that we could afford to improve that infrastructure. Every one of these gentlemen up here have acknowledged publicly numerous times that they understand that the growth is putting a strain on the infrastructure. That's why we're starting to see attendance rise at these meetings, and we're committed to doing that. As Commissioner Salter always states, we're going to do as much or as little as you let us with the revenue. So that's why we've asked for that additional revenue through the sales tax. And I would just encourage you, in wrapping up, reach out to Commissioner Peach. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet with him before, privately, I can say firsthand from just seeing folks coming and going, he is extremely receptive to meeting with you or groups of homeowners. And then that way, as he could work with staff to formulate some plans, or whether it be that there's an overhaul or just cleaning drainage ditches or whatever, and he could be your liaison on that and bring those ideas to the board if it needs board action, or it may be that he's able to address it with staff.
Well, one last thing. Whoever does the final inspection of these developers' properties and signs off it for the county need to start cracking down on these people. I just had a discussion with Mr. Ramsey today. He finished up 4 houses down next door to my property back in April, and I asked him today, almost a year later, hey, are you ever going to move the service pole that was sitting on the property down there? And he said, well, the power company will come to it. I said, no, it doesn't belong to the power company. A service pole belongs to the owner. You bought the property from me. It was my service pole. Now it's your service pole, and you left it when you pulled out. We have streets, county-maintained streets that are destroyed by these contractors, and they drive off and leave them destroyed. They're not fixing them.
Right.
And somebody needs I think whoever signs off on the final inspection for the county on a house needs to look around the properties and make sure it's in compliance with the way it should be.
Right. Well, I appreciate the job they do. I know we're, as every department, always encouraged to try to do better. So I do appreciate that, and I would just encourage you to reach out to Commissioner Peach, and with district-specific things, and I'm very encouraged from what I've seen that he'll bring it forward to the board, and I do appreciate it.
Well, now that I have his cell phone number and his email address,
There
he'll
you
be
go.
hearing a lot from me.
All right. Nothing
Okay.
after 10. Don't get him in trouble with his wife.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you putting this on the.
Yes, sir. Do we
agenda.
have anybody else here, since I had the public forum added? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, try to be
No,
brief
we don't
here.
really have any rezoning.
Yes, sir. Just state your name and address for the record real quick. We hit the speak button, we have to get it on public record. I try to make that red light light. There you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bridget Kelly, 5449 Mulat Road. I'm sorry I got here as quickly as I could from work.
No problem.
I had a question. The Bell Lane Partnership
Yes, ma'am.
is going to be built right across the street from my house.
Okay.
And I was wanting to know if you could tell me what kind of development that's going to go in there. It's like 6 and 6.3 acres.
Right. So there hasn't been any plans submitted to this board or the county that I know of about what would be built. As far as allowable zonings, I'm hoping Sean could thumb to the page quicker than me to say what would be allowable under highway commercial development. So I'm waiting for him to chime in, but typically like retail, which, Sean, you want to read it off here? I was hoping you-
Yes,
It's
certainly.
like currently forest.
Right, so
Right.
certainly, that property was amended for a future land use change back in 2005, 2006 timeframe. What Mr. Henry is proposing on that property is HCD, which is a highway commercial development. It could be something typical, what you would see up and down Highway 90 or 98 in that similar areas, anything from general retail, fast food restaurants, a neighborhood market, from Walmart or something of that nature.
Okay, so there is apparently a plan to drastically change the nature of the current neighborhood, is that right?
Well, Mr. Henry or Edwin Henry Company Homes owns the almost that entire area regarding Bell Lane, Sterling, and Mulat. So he has now, I believe, along Sterling, he has highway commercial development, and then the property behind that is zoned R1 for single-family residential, and then heading up Bell Lane, he has some M2, or not M2, but R2, which is for medium-density residential.
Okay. With the highway commercial development, do you know, are they going to be coming through with sewer, sidewalks, that kind of thing?
Sewer would be required, sidewalks are not currently.
Okay. And then one more question, thank you for indulging. With regards to like garbage service, the business is on the corner, the garbage is emptied at like 2:30 in the morning, so it's extremely loud. And I'm wondering, is there any ordinances that prevent them from having these kind of disturbances?
Not that I'm aware of. County attorney is over there, and he may have some information.
No,
So there's not?
there's not.
And so there's no recourse as far as asking the garbage companies not to empty dumpsters in the very early hours?
You can ask.
I have been asking, and they just ignore me.
And I want to encourage you to, please get with Sean after the meeting. If you'll give her contact information, either, even if it has to be via you, please put her in touch with Andrew Hill. We hear more complaints than I know I care to about garbage service. But Andrew has been good on mitigating some of these issues. I saw one, I believe it was the beach actually, that had an issue like this.
Yeah.
And I know he'll try to work with you, and then just please, if you can get with Sean, get with Andrew Hill, we pay him to manage that contract, and
Okay,
hopefully
thank
he can
you.
get you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you
All
for
right,
your time.
with that, we're going to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Recommend the ordinance.
Apologize. Had to pencil in here the public forum. They're all over the board tonight. I'll hear about it later. All right, we're going to go ahead and recommend the ordinances without objection. Hearing none, those will be approved, and now we will adjourn. Thank you.